So you have to understand, the elites just a couple hundred years ago believed in this system of eugenics, and they controlled their populations through serfdom, through feudalism, through total control. And if you were caught, even though your family was starving to death, going off the tiny, less than a half-acre piece of property that each serf in England had, some areas it was even smaller, and getting a rabbit, picking up firewood, even though your family was freezing to death, you would be executed. Executed. You weren't even allowed to own knives. You had to have a special little license, leather license with a stamp on it, with a brand on it, to have a knife if you were in a noble service where a knife was needed. So total control, starving to death, 2 feet shorter on average. And the nobles enjoyed riding past the slaves. They enjoyed calling them little people, calling them dirty scum, calling them trash, calling them filth. And then, if you go back to the 100 Years' War and others, you would have British kings writing to their Norman cousins in France saying, we've got too many people, too many mouths to feed, we're having rebellions, we need to have a war. Who's going to invade who this time? And they even gave the British Brittany in France as a full-time landing zone where the French would let them land armies to attack them. And it was just cousins saying, we need to kill our slaves, let's have a war. I mean, these are public, mainstream history. And I'm incorporating this into a future film. But the issue is this, that's why when Galton came along 150 years ago and coined the term eugenics, he was only scientifically codifying the social Darwinistic rationale for this control and saying we're killing, we're enslaving, we're poisoning the people for their own good because they're scum and they deserve it. They are scum and they deserve it. So you can argue that in Plato's time, 2,300 years ago, that there were too many people. You can argue today there are too many people. But the issue is you need to also understand this is a cold-blooded system of control. And from the elite's perspective, it's a way to dumb you down so you're more manageable and to cull your numbers. Because human life has always been cheap. Now human life is seen by the elites as a negative. It is seen as something that is trash, garbage. It has a negative value that needs to be gotten rid of. And then you get into the fact that once a country industrializes, the population goes negative. You have less people born than we're already living. The Western world's average for every 2 adults is they have 1.3 children. That is a extermination genocide rate already from Japan to the United States. Now, for every Western nation, and I've read eugenics documents like the 1949 Royal Commission on Population issued by His Royal Highness, the King of England. It was right before Queen Elizabeth took the throne, before he died. And they said, if we industrialize the third world, they'll stop having as many kids, but that will actually build them up. So we'll make sure they keep having more kids for the next 30, 40 years. Then we'll just euthanize and kill them with other weapons to keep their numbers down. But it doesn't matter. The average yuppie thinks people need to die. The yuppie doesn't understand that they're in the crosshairs as well. We'll come back. Stay with us.
Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?
It is the Sunday edition. Your calls are coming up. Toll free, 888-201-2244, 888-201-2244. A lot of important news on the flu front. That staged event that's going on, we'll be breaking that down. And I'm going to go to your calls, and I know we're all over the map here in just a moment. But I wanted to give you some of the history of eugenics and this idea of the elite to keep the people poor, dumbed down, distracted. The Romans, as they got more and more corrupt, used the gladiatorial events, sporting events, to distract and divert the population. They didn't want men thinking of their identity as standing up for their families and freedom, so they made their identity about sports and gladiatorial events and chariot races, and they wrote about how they were controlling people. And the more decadent a society, the more sports, the more obsession with celebrity, the same things are happening today. And the White House science czar openly calls for poisoning the water to sterilize you and your family, to euthanize old people. All of this in his own book, Eco-Science. Then you have the current issue of Newsweek, The Case for Killing Granny, Curbing Excessive End-of-Life Care is Good for America. So see, all these years we told you, when they call for legalizing euthanasia, that's because in their own policy reports, they want to force you to die. They want to kill you, not just give you the choice to take a bunch of pain pills or to take a bunch of drugs and die if you want that choice. And now they're admitting that's what this is about. And then you open up Newsweek and they have a flashback to the article from the week before, Is Your Baby Racist? And then it just goes on to basically demonize and create more racial division and talk about the carbon footprint of your baby and how the West is evil and how we've got to have a lower standard. But they're not going to raise the third world. They're going to lower the third world and lower the United States and other Western countries, just like NAFTA and GATT. Ross Perot, I've gone back and watched those debates between Ross Perot and Al Gore from Larry King Live back in 1994. And Perot's giving him statistics from other open borders trade deals where both the third world country and the first world country both have a standard of living drop and wages go down, except for the top 0.1%. And that's the same thing that's now happening here. Now they gauge a recession by how the elite is doing and how the banks are doing. Well, they're doing great. They stole $23.7 trillion in the first 10 months since the bailout. We haven't gotten the new numbers the last few months. It'll be over $28 trillion with the way they've been stealing money. Unlimited. The Federal Reserve won't say where the money went. And my film, Fall of the Republic, coming out October 21st, covers all this. It's just so mind-boggling to see them get away with all of this. And to now hear them say the economy is good when the ultra-rich are doing well. And when the ultra-rich are becoming even more wealthy and consolidating power, and they're saying this is a jobless recovery. So this is the new America and the new system worldwide where the banks implode the economy and the majority of your tax money goes to pay interest on debt, because the tens of trillions that the United States and other countries have given to the private central banks, we don't just give them that money. We pay interest on them to the money we give them. I'm not kidding. So there you have it. Is your baby racist? The case for killing Granny. It goes on and on. Now, without even looking for this news the last few days, it is just everywhere. They are brainwashing the entire public with eugenics and saying the earth will do better, the economy will do better if we have less people. And they're focusing this in the West, where we already have a 1.3 population replacement rate. For every 2 parents, they have 1.3 children. The United States is a 1.8, but if you take out the immigrant influx, it's 1.3. Now, this is without looking for these headlines. You can search engine the term babies, climate change, and you will get hundreds of articles per week. This is AP. Birth control could help combat climate change. As if climate change isn't normal with the seasons of the sun. It's been proven that global warming being man-made is a fraud. Giving contraceptives to people in developing countries could help fight climate change by slowing population growth. Okay. Here's another one. ABC News. Huge population boom, a massive challenge. Here's Salon. Condoms against climate change. Here's the Washington Post. When it comes to pollution, less kids may be more. And it says babies are the #1 cause. Put a tax on having babies. And they're already coming out saying put a tax on dogs in the United States. That's in my stack because they're bad for climate change. See, #1, carbon has this image of being dirty, like it's soot. Carbon dioxide is a gas. It's not carbon. But they call it carbon. And carbon dioxide is what plants breathe. But they say we need more trees This is insane, ladies and gentlemen. It's totally made up. And they brag, the UN brags, by taxing carbon dioxide, they control and can tax the entire biosphere. They can tax all human activity on this planet and make it a crime. And that's what the Club of Rome, big UN eugenics group, says it's all about, making humans the enemy. Now, I'm done talking about that for now. I would hope of all these dozens of callers that we've got that have called in here that some of you would want to talk about this issue. But I know you'll be all over the map, and that's fine. Then coming up next hour, UN shock report, swine flu could kill millions, pandemic may result in anarchy, London Observer. And we're going to go over that article coming up in the next hour. We're also going to get into what's really happening with the economy, and Obama, as I said he would do in January, and as we put in my film that came out in March, the Obama deception, calling for a new Bank of the World you pay your carbon taxes to.